All right, I think we can go ahead and start with the webinar. Some people might continue to join, but we can catch them up in the Q&A if they have questions about anything they missed. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this NJZIP Help Desk webinar as part of our series of technical assistance for the NJZIP program. My name is Miriam Salerno. I'm with the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University. We provide staff support to NJEDA on the NJZIP program, and we're here to answer all of your questions. One of the questions that does come up very frequently is about charging and making sure that you have a good charging plan and program in place for your vehicles. And one of the key players in making sure that you can adequately charge your vehicle is your utility. So the topic today here is working with your utilities, making sure that you know everything you need to know before you have your vehicle in your possession so that you're ready to go. And I am going to now turn it over to Lena Rivetti from NJEDA.
Thanks, Miriam, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. As Miriam mentioned, my name is Lena Rivetti. I'm a product officer on the NJEDA's Clean Energy team, and I help oversee our New Jersey Zero Emission Incentive Program. So thanks again to our help desk at the Voorhees Transportation Center who provide technical assistance and put together informative sessions such as this one. I'm excited to share that a third pilot phase of NJZIP will launch for purchasers alongside a new complimentary loan program, NJZEV, on Monday, November 24th at 10 a.m. We recognize that having a charging plan is an essential step to successfully electrifying your fleets. And so I'd also like to thank Dawn Neville from PSE&G for joining us today to walk you through some key things to consider when engaging with your utility provider. Our help desk will be moderating questions throughout the session, and at the end, my colleague Jessica will provide a high-level overview about NJEDA's Take Charge program that was recently approved by our board. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dawn. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Lena. My name is Dawn Neville. I'm Senior Manager of Electric Transportation at PSE&G. We are one of the 4 electric distribution companies in New Jersey that will help put the E in your EV. So I like to start with what I kind of call EV 101. For those of you already in this industry, this is very well-known information, but I feel that it's really good to get grounded and make sure everyone's on the same page. So on the left here, we have some very key acronyms that we use in the EV world. And so BEV is a battery electric vehicle. That's a full battery electric vehicle, as opposed to a PHEV, which is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. But both BEV and PHEV are counted as plug-in electric vehicles, or PEVs. So as you can see, the acronyms can get super confusing. DCFC, that's your direct current fast charger. Those are your superchargers on the highway. It's somewhere in community locations. We like to call an internal combustion engine an ICE vehicle. It's just an easy way to refer to them. ZEV, zero emission vehicle, is fuel agnostic. So that could be, with a different kind of fuel other than just electric. And then the most important one for you to take away today is SOC, which is state of charge. That's the percent charge of your battery. And what that really is sort of like how full is your tank, right? So most electric vehicles recommend you run between 20% and 80% state of charge. So that's like having a quarter of a tank to 3/4 of a tank of fuel. On the right, we give the charging levels. So level 1, because it was first, is a real slow charger. It's a trickle charger. They're typically 1 to 2 kilowatts. They can be plugged into any standard 110 volt outlet. So you can plug them in your garage. They will give you about 2 miles for every hour of charging. So it's super slow, but it will charge your car anywhere. The next thing that came out was level 2, so it was called fast charging. I wish we could change that term to medium, but it's known as a fast charger. So you want to be careful, because if someone's selling you a fast charger, you should ask if it's a level 2 or a level 3. Those are between 7 and 19 and growing kilowatts, and they'll give you 25 miles of range for every hour of charging. So your typical car needs 3 to 4 hours to charge in a way. Those require a 240 volt outlet. So it's a special NEMA 1450 plug many of your dryers, if you have an electric dryer, it has a similar plug. So that does require some work to be able to plug that into your home. Then the level 3, those are the direct current fast chargers. They are super fast. They will give you about 5 miles for every minute of charging, but you typically do not want to charge your car over 80% state of charge using that super fast charger. That's jamming into the battery a little too quickly. It's recommended you stop at about 80%. Some cars actually won't let you go past 80 or 85%, and it also slows down as you get closer to that number. So basically, you can get 80% filled in 15 to 20 minutes, which is less than your typical rest stop. So you pull in, plug in, go inside, do whatever, get a piece of pizza, whatever, and come on out and your car's charged. The other thing that people ask often is EV really cleaner? And yes, especially in New Jersey, where we have a very healthy nuclear generation, that every mile here is 70% cleaner than a gasoline or ICE mile. The bigger issues are they're 2 times more efficient at converting primary energy into motion. They don't consume electricity when you're idling. And let's face it, we do a lot of idling in New Jersey, just in traffic. I don't mean that as on a curbside. They use regenerative braking, and they also require minimal maintenance. So the operating costs tend to be about 40% lower than a gasoline car. Another key term, and this is really important when you're talking to your utility, is what's called make ready. So to make a site ready for electric vehicles, you may need work on both sides of the meter. So you have work on the utility side of the meter. That's something that your electric company will do. That could be a transformer. It could be even a new service line, poles and wires that come up to the meter. And then you might need work on the customer side, especially like if you're installing a level 2 or level 3 charger. So you could need a new switchgear, new panel. You might need, the wires to run from your panel to where you want to plug that charger in. So that's customer side make ready. And then obviously chargers themselves, and then the vehicles themselves. One of the things that we stopped using, they used to say pole to meter work and behind the meter work. We're trying to get away from those terms because behind the meter for us is different than behind the meter for the customer. Those are perspectives. So we like to stick now to utility side make ready and customer side make ready, trying to keep the confusion down a little bit. Another question we get asked often is EV adoption really continuing to grow? I've been asked this question every year since they took this role in 2020. And every year there was a different reason why people thought that adoption was not growing in New Jersey. But I will say that the growth rate has slowed very significantly, particularly in this year, given some political climate and headwinds that we're facing. But EV adoption does continue to grow. So at the end of 2024, we had 218,000 registered vehicles, and halfway through 2025, we're at 250,000. We estimate we'll end the year at about 270,000. So it is still continuing to grow, but not at the same growth rate as it was. And then another question, do we have enough supply, right? That's a big question right now. We're facing some issues with pricing, supply and demand concerns in New Jersey right now. So just to put it in perspective, we have a little graphic here. Thankfully, it started at National Grid, by the way, this graphic, but just shows some of the relative amount of load that sites need. So if you're going to electrify a car or a couple of trucks, those requests are typically 1 to 3 megawatts. So those are those initial service requests where you come in and ask for the load. That compares to a sports stadium like MetLife, which is using about 5 megawatts or more of load. An individual bus depot is typically 9 to 10 megawatts. And that's comparable to what it takes to power the Empire State Building, which has 1 million square foot of floor space. So I like to point out at PSE&G, we have 13 New Jersey Transit bus depots in our territory. So we need to power 13 Empire State Buildings in the next 5 to 10 years. That doesn't even count all of the Rutgers busing. Rutgers is the second largest busing system in New Jersey. And we have Rutgers in our territory as well. The Empire State Building being 9 to 10 megawatts is smaller than an average data center request. So data centers are coming in eclipsing the load of EVs right now. So the average data center request we get is about 15 megawatts. A large town typically uses 20 megawatts. If I were to put a highway charging plaza for trucks, so MHD, medium heavy duty vehicles, so bus and truck plaza center, it's about 25 megawatts. And lately, data centers are at 50 and more megawatts. We've even had requests that are in the 3 digits. I wanted to next shift to explaining where your electric company's territories are. So there are 4 electric distribution companies, or EDCs, in New Jersey. And this map here is color coded. Atlantic City Electric has the bottom of the state here. Cape May County, Cumberland County, et cetera, et cetera. Then there is JCP&L, which is the blue territory in the Northwest, and then I want to say Middle East, right? It's not really Southeast, but it's the Ocean County, Monmouth County areas, and then Hunter and Morris, Warren, and Sussex areas. They're the light blue. Rockland Electric Company has a small territory up in the north east portion of the state. And then the orange beauty parlor sash is Public Service Electric and Gas, or PSE&G, where I work. So we run from basically like Fort Lee and Bergen County down to a little bit of Camden County and Gloucester County. Each of those 4 EDCs has a utility EV program, which all 4 of which are make-ready programs. So we can support the installation costs of chargers both on the utility side of the meter and the customer side of the meter. So the programs are different sizes based on the different size of the utility. And most are similar, but there are some slight nuances and differences. So you can go to, I'll give you later contact information for each of the EV programs at each of the 4 EDCs, and you can go find out more about the specifics. But they all have a residential program where we're helping to install smart level 2 chargers into single family homes. We have commercial programs, which include multi-unit dwellings, government entities, and, commercial businesses. And then there is a DCFC public charging program that is helping to put those fast chargers in highways and in community locations. The programs are all scheduled, with the exception of PSE&G, scheduled to run through June to December of 2026. JCP&L's, I think, ends in June. ACE and RICO both end in December. Ours does not have an actual end date, but we're looking to time our program's fulfillment right around the same end of 2026 as the other 3 utilities. I'm going to describe Public Services Electric Vehicle Program because, of course, that's the one I know the best. All 3 EDCs have slight nuances to their programs. And like I said, I'll give you information about the websites that you can go and see, or contact the EV teams and you can go and ask for the nuances. But for the most part, they're relatively similar. So for residential smart charging, we can offer up to $1,500 towards customer side make-ready costs to install a level 2 charger. That means that you can hire an electrician to install that NEMA 1450 outlet and help install the level 2 charger, and we will help reimburse your costs up to $1,500. We can also support the utility side upgrade if it's needed. So sometimes the service needs to be upgraded in order to support that added load. And then we have an off-peak charging credit that we offer to help people learn to charge off-peak, which is good charging behavior. It helps put downward pressure on rates for all customers. The mixed-use commercial charging for us, that's multifamily dwellings, government entities, and otherwise publicly accessible level 2 chargers. So our program, the Make Ready, stops at the charger stub, but our incentives are based on the number of chargers that are installed. So we can give up to $30,000 towards customer side Make Ready costs, but that's $7,500 per charger up to 4 chargers. And then we can also help with up to $10,000 on the new service upgrade, either the service upgrade or the new service line. For the DCFC program, we can give up to $100,000 customer side make ready. Again, that's $25,000 for up to 4 chargers. And you can only go up to your actual costs. And then we can give up to $50,000 for that service upgrade if needed. We also have demand charge rebates or a demand charge holiday to help lower the DCFC electric rates. So we are investing $166 million in approximately 6 years. At this point, we have over 29,000 chargers that have been installed in our electric vehicle program, which began in January of 2021. The benefits of this program are that we are going to be avoiding approximately 14 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. We're also generating jobs and helping combat range anxiety, which is one of the biggest barriers to EV adoption, is the idea that people are concerned they're not going to find a place to charge and they'll run out of electricity on the road. So the point of this webinar is how to work together with your electric company. So what do you need to consider when talking to your utility to electrify your fleet? There's several important factors, but if I can leave you with one phrase to take away from today's webinar, it's talk to your utility early and often. But don't just go to your utility, find your charging champion in your utility. It might be the EV team, but it could be the grid modernization team or the utility of the future team. For the 4 in New Jersey, I do give the EV team's contact information so you can get your charging champion. When you need a utility service upgrade or you're adding load to your site, either through a new meter or an existing meter, typically you need to fill out what's known as a new service request. You need to submit what load you're looking to ask for. And so before you begin your project, contact that utility for that service upgrade. But even before you do that, how do you choose the right charging infrastructure for your fleet? So you need to work with, you need to look at your average daily mileage that you need for your business operations, and then how much time is it available for charging that vehicle? How much time is it idle, parked? You know, it might be parked overnight. It might be parked, a school bus could be parked in the middle of the day and overnight as examples. You can talk to your vehicle manufacturer to estimate your EV's energy consumption. So how much energy do you need per mile to recharge the battery? And then again, the utilities EV team or charging champion can also help you. One of the biggest things that you want to avoid is overcharging, oversizing your chargers, because the larger load comes with higher costs. And the first gut instinct sometimes is that you need a fast charger for every vehicle, and you may, depending on your business operations, but you probably don't. Most people do not. Most people can share chargers across multiple vehicles and can even, you know, charge at level 2 rather than level 3. But that's all based on what you need for your business operations. The issue is that the, you know, higher load requests you have, the more money it's going to cost on both the customer side and the utility side to install that. And also then it does impact your rates as well, right? The higher, you can have higher rates. So how do you understand electric rates and EV charging impacts? I'm not sure it's completely understandable, but it's a whole new process that you need to talk to your utility about to really understand, because that will directly influence your monthly utility bill, which directly influences your fuel costs, right? So if you're operating a fleet, you kind of know what happens when gasoline or diesel goes up or down a penny. But with utility bills, there's time of day factors, there's heat wave factors and coincident peak issues and all sorts of things like that. So the cost of that electricity will depend on your fleet, your charging profile, and how you manage it. When we say managing it, we say trying to keep it off peak. And so your utility can help you understand a lot more about that. This sheet, if you take anything away, this sheet is how to contact your utility by different topics. So each utility in New Jersey has a row here. And on the left is the utility service upgrade. So that's what you need to do if you want to upgrade or establish a new service. And again, that's in the left column. In the middle there is the utility specific EV team for each of the EDCs. So you can email those contact information, that contact information, and reach the EV team directly. And then on the right, they give contact information for understanding rates. So in some cases, it's the EV team, and others it might be a rates team. But again, if I say anything repetitively, it's talk to your utility early and often. One of the reasons you want to talk to your utility early and often is that it does take time for us to bring in a service upgrade. These are very average times. Do not take these to heart. Individual site timelines can vary significantly for so many reasons. It's not, I couldn't explain them all. But on average, if you just need a distribution transformer upgrade, that's going to average 6 to 12 months to accomplish. If you need more, if we need to do some capacity work, 'cause maybe we need to reconfigure some circuits, that averages 1 to 3 years. And then if your site load is such that we need an entire substation, that's an extreme example, but a substation takes 5 to 7 years on average. So most projects run in the middle category for medium heavy duty projects. Some actually, believe it or not, for our DCFC program, about 60% of the sites were 6 months to a year. So they average from 6 months to 3 years. So that's basically how to work with your utility. And I know, some people are capturing questions, but I think I turn it over. Do we stop for questions now, Andrew, or go to the next slide?
Yep, we'll stop for questions now. So thank you very much, Don. Yeah, as Don mentioned, we have it open for Q&A now. You feel free, as we're going, to put your question in the chat, or to raise your hand, and we'll have you on mute and ask your question. So feel free, just even as we're going through this Q&A session, to do so. Yeah, we'll go from there in kind of the order that we receive them. So the first question I saw here, and we also have some representatives from RICO as well, one of the other agencies. So hopefully, if there's any RICO specific questions, they might be able to help with those as well. But the first question I just saw come in from Ivan Way, and he prefaced this with, it might not be answerable right now, but how can you make sure that the energy for a charging station comes from a renewable energy source? Is there any way to ensure that?
That's an excellent question, Ivan, and I don't think we can ensure that unless you were 100% renewable on your site, say like a microgrid where you had solar and energy storage and you provided your own generation, you managed your own generation needs on site. What we do have in New Jersey is a fairly good mix of renewables, not it could get better. It can always get better, and everyone's looking to do that. But with our nuclear generation in New Jersey, that is a pretty healthy percentage of renewable energy.
Another question coming from Vanessa. So could you explain how the demand charge is calculated or provide a simple example of how it affects fleets, since this is kind of a new concept trying to understand?
Yeah, that another excellent question, Vanessa, and it is kind of hard to explain, but there are two portions of your electric bill. One is the distribution and one is the supply. So we are EDCs, we're distribution companies. So the last mile, the wires and the pole pipes and the transformers to get to you are run by the electric company, and that is the distribution cost on your bill. Then there is a supply cost, and that has capacity obligations and transmission obligations. That cost for us is a pass-through. We get our supply from the ISO, the system operator, that is PJM. PJM stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Maryland, but it actually is 13 states. And we have an auction annually to get that supply from PJM. And then whatever that auction result is, we pass that through. But that will have capacity and transmission obligations that will be impacted by the overall demand, right? So we have 5 2-hour windows each year where the demand is the highest. We don't know those dates until afterward, right? But if it's a 4 or 5 day heat wave, it's going to probably be about 4 to 9 on the 4th or 5th day of that heat wave, right? So those rates then set how much you use during those periods sets your rate for the next calendar year. So it's really a complex. I don't know that there's a simple way to explain it. I think that it's more like sit down and ask for understanding your rates and documents from your utility, because it's just so complex. So I'm sorry if that's not really an answer. I apologize. Who is responsible to pay for utility upgrades that can take 1 to 6 years, utility or landowner? So the way that it works in New Jersey, the New Jersey Administrative Code sets the rules for main extensions and how they are put cost estimated, how they are paid for. So if you come in and ask for X kilowatts or X megawatts, our engineers sit down and determine what it's going to cost to make those upgrades. But then they factor in your 10-year revenue estimate, like how much you're going to use and how much we're going to make for 10 years off the sale. And the difference of that is usually then a deposit that's required from the customer. Once we get into like, we need a substation, the customer's not paying for that. That's a regional need. So that's part of our capital investment. I have JCP&L. For getting rebates, must I use certain manufacturing charges? Yes. So each of the programs has a set list of chargers that are approved, or in some cases, vehicles, because we can get the data from the vehicles. The BPU, which is the Public Utility Commission in New Jersey, the Board of Public Utilities, when they approved these programs, they made it a requirement that the utilities collect charging data. And so in order to collect that data, we need to have license agreements and arrangements to be able to collect that data. So that dictates the list of approved chargers and vehicles from which each utility can accept the data. The 80% state of charge is really for level 3. You can charge your car slowly in level 2 or even level 1 higher than 80%. So absolutely, charging, the best way to charge, a personal vehicle is at home with level 2. And then you can charge to 100% and get up in the morning and have a full tank of gas, or full tank of electricity rather. But the level 3 is where they don't recommend you push past 80. So there are time of use rates available at each of the utilities. Everybody's are probably slightly different, but there is some sort of rate where, off peak is less money, right? So for us, we have a time of use rate with 2 periods, and we're about to roll out one with 3 periods. So there's a least expensive time, which would be like midnight to 6. There's sort of a shoulder time, which is from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. And then from 4 to 9 is the most expensive or on-peak rate. The beauty of the vehicles and the chargers, most of them have an app that you can say, I'm going to come home, drive home at 6 o'clock, plug my car in, but please don't start charging until. And you can set the time to match your utility's specific time of use periods. And maximize the benefit of off-peak charging and minimize the cost of the electricity.
From Ramachandran, I think that's one of the types of vehicles. So that might be a more specific question.
So
for that manufacturer, if it'll work with the DC fast charger.
yeah, different cars and different years have different types of charger charger ports, right? So most cars now have committed to using NACS, the North America Charging Standard, which really was the original Tesla. There are there are adapters that you can get. Some are at the charger, some are at the car, right? So you should be able to charge for the most part. If you have an original older car that might still have CHAdeMO, that's a limitation. You can only be charged with a CHAdeMO charger, but those are phasing out. Don't tell my team that because one of them owns a CHAdeMO car. But for the most part, the chargers are becoming more and more compatible. So Vanessa, I think it'd be easier for me to send out a document. We have a document, we call it the PERPA, that explains the demand charge and how it's calculated and a simple example. And I will provide that to the EDA and they can distribute that to participants. And then I would suggest if you're not a PSE&G customer, that you could go online to any of the website for your utility and probably find a very similar document.
So yeah, we'll leave another minute for any Q&A that comes in to the thoughts. But I think one question, Don, was just for purchasers who, let's say they're about to apply for phase 3, they like find their vehicle of choice. What info does your utility need for them to kind of like start that? Hey, like here's where my business is, here's the type of business I'm getting, this like level 4 van. Is that enough info for them to then reach out to you? Or what else would you require the other utilities to do?
Well, typically they should look at what charger they're thinking of getting because we would want to know the size of the charger, right? So are you buying an 18 kilowatt charger? Or are you buying a 10 kilowatt charger? That's, that's what the utility kind of needs to know is what power rating are you adding? What load are you adding? But you don't have to commit to the purchase. You can come to your utility and say, I think I'm going to buy this size. How would that work? Once you actually want to do a new service upgrade evaluation and that engineering evaluation, that's when you would want to commit to the specific size charger.
So it's like that's it for the Q&A. Thank you again, Don, for all those answers. And yeah, we'll send a follow-up email after this webinar, and we can definitely include what you're going to ship that document you mentioned before.
There's one last question. If 2 cars are
Okay.
charging in 2 ports, will it reduce them? They're getting more and more sophisticated as time is going along, but typically if there's one charger with 2 ports and both cars are charging, it will typically split it 50-50. But if one car starts taking slower amount of charging, then the other one can get more, such that the sum equals the total.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Andrew. Was one last
Yeah.
question.
Share my screen real quick. So yeah, so thank you again for answering all those questions. And if more questions come up for any of the attendees, we have the NJZIP help desk, which I'm a part of, and Miriam leads. So we help and provide technical assistance for the NJZIP program. So any of those kind of, I want to start a charging plan. I don't know where to start. Where do I even look for chargers? Those are some of those types of questions that we can start the ball rolling and then point you to the correct utility, maybe to continue the conversation. So yeah, if there's questions that come up later on, feel free to email us or call us. We'll provide the our email and our phone and a later slide. But just some of the different things that we can help out with. So Lena mentioned at the top of the webinar that there's also going to be a loan program that NJEDA is running with phase 3. So if there's questions about that, you can reach out to the help desk. Questions about the application or where to find specific resources. I underlined it here, but any tips for charging plans, connecting to the incentives that the different utilities run. We have a lot of that info. We've kind of gone through a lot of it and, can point you in the right direction of, hey, I'm a business that plans to be able to charge overnight. Should I get the level 2 or the level 3? we could start that conversation with you, and feel free to email or call us for that. And then just understanding the vehicle side of things, the costs, the types and maintenance. You know, the applications are about to open up, and usually we get a lot of questions about, hey, where's my application at? We don't help with those types of questions. I just always find it helpful to mention that that's not something that we go into. But I just wanted to share our website, our email, and our phone number. We're here 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If we don't get your call right away, we try to, you know, best of our ability to answer, you know, within one day. So yeah, we're here to be a resource to you and to help you with the application, you know, and the whole process from end to end. So that's the NJZIP help desk. And I'm just going to turn it over to Jessica from the NJEDA to just share about one other piece of the program that will be helpful for purchases. So the charge.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I briefly wanted to cover the Take Charge program, which was a recently approved program to assist with the costs of installing EV charging infrastructure. The main eligibility requirement here is that it is for private commercial organizations with 2 or more vehicles registered for commercial use in New Jersey. So to apply for this program, you don't have to already have any EVs. It can be any kind of vehicle or even marine vessel for that matter. This is going to launch sometime early next year. So for those of you that are going to be applying to ZIP once it opens up next week, you might already want to be thinking about charging solutions. But for those of you who might be applying to the second round of ZIP or thinking about a larger charging infrastructure project in the future, this could be a really helpful resource. Our grant awards will range from $50,000 to $5 million, and we will cover 50% of any eligible project costs. And I can put a link to the Take Charge website in the chat, just so that everyone can see. But I will also be available to answer any questions. I can put my email in that follow-up that Andrew's going to send out to all of our participants if you have any specific questions. Again, this is for EV chargers ranging from level 2 to DCFC, so we're not covering those smaller level 1 chargers with this, but it also provides funding for any of those make-ready upgrades, and even site assessment and engineering when you're looking about where to place your chargers initially. We have a few different bonuses, which I wanted to point out. For example, we have a 5% bonus for projects in overburdened communities and another bonus for projects that are going to bring on their own renewable energy or battery storage systems to help power the chargers. So again, our team is available to answer any questions you have about this, and I just want to make folks aware, though we will be launching this a little bit later than ZIP. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. The help desk is available to answer any questions, as is the EDA team on this and charging in general. Thank you to Dawn, and hope everyone has a great afternoon.